New people. Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone. I see we have a quorum, and this is an important meeting. We consider it our annual meeting, which is also coincides with the beginning of school. So we're going to get a good report on school reopening, which has been a big lift, but seems to be going well from at least my perspective, but you'll hear it from the people on the front lines. This is also the time when we elect new board members and sadly say goodbye to some of our departing board members. With that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Laura, so you could introduce some of your new staff members who are with us, which is exciting.
Very exciting. We have waited a long time for Alicia, and we are very, very excited to have her. So Alicia, I'm going to turn the mic to you to give a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and where you're joining.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. I'm Alicia May. I appreciate that that might be the warmest welcome I've ever received, that you waited a long time for me. But I am really excited to be a part of the team. I am most recently coming from KIPP DC, where I have worked in Ward 8 in Anacostia community for the past 12 years. Started off originally as a teacher there, then I became a vice principal and a principal most recently. And so I just enjoy serving the amazing students of Washington, DC, enjoy working at really high performing charter schools. And I'm really excited to be a part of this team. I have had, I've been here for about 8 weeks, and I feel like I have been incredibly warmly embraced and mentored and supported by the amazing chiefs that are on this call, and the rest of the senior team. So I'm so excited to be a part of the community, and I apologize in advance. I'm multitasking with some little ones, so ignore any sounds you hear in the background. They're excited as well. They can't wait to become old enough to be at DC Prep. So it's just a lot of enthusiasm in the house right now. Thank you all.
I hope that they'll make an appearance.
You hope that, Katie, and I hope that they stay off camera. That's the difference.
Well, we're really delighted to have you, Alicia, and your entire family. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I will also fess up and say I have a new puppy. So if anything odd happens on this end, it could be his fault. I have a friend coming in to help me during part of this meeting because he's been on a number of Zoom calls today, which is hard when you're not quite 9 weeks old. Let's jump. Did you have anything else, Laura, that you wanted to say before we jump into the agenda? Okay. Our first topic is review and approval of the November minutes, which were part of your materials. So are there any comments or questions on the minutes? If not, if I could have a motion to approve, then we'll go into a roll call vote. There's a motion from Terry. Is there a second? And Hadley seconds. Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to go around the screen as I see it.
Michaela, just interrupting. I'm not sure if we have quorum yet for that. I don't know what quorum is. I'm just
I think
trying to count while you're talking.
I think it's 5, isn't it, Laura? So I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4.
7 of us on now. Also, maybe we're good. Okay.
I think we're okay.
Yeah, we've got 8 of 15, and then Emily will be joining us a little bit late. She's got back to school night tonight, but she'll be here for later in the agenda. And Judy let me know that Peter had surgery. He's coming out of surgery. It went really well, but she unfortunately will not be able to join us. So
okay. And Laura is saying Colette is coming on now. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so I'm going to go around the screen as I see it. And Patrick, I see you first. So if you are in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Nicole?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Mara?
Aye.
Let's see. Hadley?
Aye.
Ahmad?
Aye.
Mercedes?
Aye.
And Colette? We're voting on the minutes.
Aye.
Okay, are there any opposed? Okay, the minutes are carried unanimously. Thank you. So with that, I'll go, I don't know, Laura, if you want to intro this or we're going right to Katie, but we want to hear about school reopening.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to turn it to Katie in a second, but what I also want to say is school reopening is certainly like it's always a team effort, but this year there's been just so many different complexities for us to navigate. And so I'm sure that you are going to have a range of questions, either kind of from what you reviewed in the board notes or from just like anything else that may be on your mind. Katie will lead us off to kind of share some of the content that we sent out over email, but we will all be pitching in to answer questions.
Thank goodness for a team. There are going to be several questions that I'm going to turn over to all my fellow peers who will be able to answer the questions better than me, I'm sure. It's been exciting to be back in person. Feels like it was a really long time coming, and we're really, really grateful to be back in person. So even when it feels and is extremely challenging, I find my gracious space, my grateful space, and just hold on to that because it's like so wonderful to be back together in person. Kids are great. They're funny. They're wonderful. And it's good to be around them and all of our wonderful colleagues. What's really unique about this year is obviously coming back after a pandemic, but also that we are officially now in our brand new model. The model that we planned for years and years and years is happening now. So we have made a lot of shifts in our standard operating structures and processes that require developing a lot of new habits and ways of being that are different. And I think doing that at the same time that we're also reminding kids to wear masks and we're staying socially distanced it's a lot for the staff to navigate. And so we're doing our best to stay focused on being patient with ourselves and one another and taking things one day at a time as we try to navigate all of the change at one time. I outlined for you in some of the materials the biggest changes. The first change is how we are approaching planning and teacher support. And the second is how we are navigating student support. And so we are giving our teachers, we're continuing to provide them with assessments and unit plans and support, but we are allowing them and expecting of them that they adjust and shift their plans more than they might have been accustomed to in the past based upon what they're learning about students and their needs. As you might imagine, students have a high range of needs coming back after so long being virtual. And so teachers are needing to spend a lot more time leaning in, talking and understanding the wide variety of needs their students have and planning for that accordingly. And often those plans require needing to connect students to students and form more of a trusting community because students have not been in school and around so many peers for a really long time. So people have short fuses. Students understandably are getting more annoyed with each other. We're having more negative peer interactions than we typically see at this time of year. And so making sure that our lesson plans and what teachers are planning for accounts for academic needs, but also social emotional needs. And there's time and space in a classroom to allow time to talk and to mediate and to form that community has been really important. Sometimes, or in the past, teachers have not felt like they had the latitude to lean in that way because there's been so much content to cover. So we've tried really hard to adjust the curriculum to prioritize the most essential content to allow teachers the space to plan for and adjust for the whole child and then the whole classroom. That's really important to plan that way, given that the shift that we made in our student behavior model. We still have all of our same expectations, and when expectations are not met, that has to be addressed. But how we address it is different, and it is focused on meeting the unmet need a student has. Oftentimes that unmet need can be behavioral. I'm bored, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm frustrated with my classmate next to me. And sometimes it can be academic. So making sure that teachers slow down and pay attention to what's the root cause of a behavior, and then addressing it accordingly takes a lot more time. It takes more skill, and is been hard to navigate. And it requires a lot of teacher support in terms of our coaching model, making sure that we have leaders in classrooms to support teachers, to help them navigate what to do in certain situations with students, because it's not a one size fits all approach. It's not a, you did this, here's how I'm going to respond. Now you have detention, now you go out in class. It's more about keeping students in class, helping address the unmet need, creating that community. It's going well in many cases. It's rocky in other cases and places, but that's to be expected. We're not surprised by it. And I think what has been harder, obviously, to navigate is that all would have been hard no matter what. It's just especially hard with COVID and coming back and so many health and safety protocols. It's a lot for teachers to manage and remember and navigate. And so we're taking things, as I said, slowly, and just being grateful for the opportunity to be back in person. Did I forget anything? Team, Laura?
I think that was a really helpful description, and one of Katie's massive strengths is that she is just an incredibly good planner. And so I can't even describe the amount of preparation that has gone into kicking off this year, because it has been like many years in the making, because this is us continuing to move forward with our org evolution planning. And so when Katie lays it out like this, it sounds like so clear and so, logical, and it just makes sense. Don't let that fool you, because there's like so much that went into and still is going into us rolling out what we believe and what our staff believes is like the right set of actions for children. Pulling it off is anything but simple, and is just requiring a massive amount of work. We wouldn't be here without the leadership that Katie and her team are bringing to this work every day.
Katie, I would be interested in hearing you talk more about kind of what you're hearing from teachers. You point out the challenges they face, both dealing with COVID and kids who haven't been in person and trying to roll out the new model at the same time. And as you described it, it's very student centric, and a lot of what they're doing is listening. But I'd be really interested in some of the early observations you've had from teachers so far this school year about how things are going.
Yeah, they, so there's a range of responses based upon who the teachers are. In general, people are reporting these are the right set of shifts. Nobody is in disagreement that, we shouldn't have done this, or these were the wrong changes. I think it's just acknowledgement of how much more time and patience it all takes, right? And so I think different staff members have reported, okay, I have so much I need to do. I feel like I have so much I need to do because the students have some pretty big academic gaps. I shared some of that data in the board notes, and the feeling of, okay, how do I wrap my head around what to prioritize and what to address and how fast and how soon, given I also need to slow down and listen and form community. I think it's just, it's feeling like they want and are glad to have the space, but also feel a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of decisions to make. They have more decisions to make. And there's even more to make now with the safe operations on top of it. So it's not a disagreement in the direction. It's more just a feeling of, okay, this is a lot. And so we're trying really, really hard because we have a high bar and we have a sense of urgency. That's part of our culture. It's part of who we are. And so I think we all have a tendency to feel like it's not good enough yet. This isn't good enough yet. We're not doing as well as we want yet. Instead of trying to shift our focus to celebrating what is going well and building on those smaller moments and say, okay, this is a good thing that's happened. How can we make sure that we have more of those good things keep happening? And again, being patient with ourselves. I think that's a hard place to live when you see the need. But we have to just keep remembering, we had 18 months of interrupted learning, and it's going to take a while to, even if we were coming back and doing DC prep the way we've always done DC prep, it would take a while to adjust to the transition and settle back in. But I think it feels even more magnified because people are learning. They're learning so much at the same time that they're trying to implement. So there's people are just, they're glad to be back, but and glad for the direction we're headed, but they're tired.
I'm sure. Questions or comments from other members of the board?
I just wanted to say thank you. It is really incredible to hear about and to read about all that this team has done and everybody throughout the DC prep community. I know several people have said it just took a unbelievable team effort, and I hope you guys feel really proud of the way everybody is persisting, even though there's a million impossible decisions a day and none of this stuff feels like, exactly what we want for our kids and for our families in terms of the level of support and the time and the space for teachers to be well and staff to be well. So I just want to thank you guys for getting up every day and figuring it out, and for sharing all the ways you're thinking about social emotional supports and academic supports for students. And I guess my question is just, is there anything we can be doing to be helping your efforts? Are there things that you need the city's attention on that they're not focusing on that would help you, or are there just other ways that the board could be passing along a message or providing some kind of support that would help your team make this a little easier?
I think I have felt very fortunate to do this work right now in DC, where I believe that the administration really wants to be supportive of schools and of students. And so I can point to a lot of different decisions that the city is making to try. Sorry, Dan gave me a pep talk the other day about not referring to the mayor as the city. So I'm going to work on that so that I don't get into statehood challenges. So pretend I didn't say that. DC, not the city, DC has made a lot of really strategic and good decisions in my opinion. And at the same time, it is a struggle to figure out how to get the number of different agencies that need to be playing ball together to all be working on the same page. We've had a lot of struggles with how to ensure that the contact tracers who are reaching out to our staff and our families are sharing the same information that we're sharing. And then, I go and I talk to contact tracers and they're like, wait a minute, but we're working off of this guidance. And I'm like, but that was from August 8th and I'm working from the August 20th guidance. So we need to get on the same page. So it's things like that, but it's also just the realities of we're all trying to stand up a whole bunch of new programs at the same time, and new programs never get off perfectly, right? And so Alicia, God bless Alicia, has done a massive amount of work to try to figure out how we can stand up asymptomatic student testing. And we're working with an outside vendor. It's amazing that the city has done a lot of work to try to secure a vendor and figure out that partnership for schools so that we don't each individually have to do it. And at the same time, she's giving them a lot of feedback because it's still not functioning smoothly. And there's more work to do to make sure that it's fully responsive to the needs of our schools. And I think we're all a little bit handicapped by just the volume of new work and the number of new people that it would require to be able to do it. And the fact that a lot of that work happens at hours that it's hard to recruit people to want to do hard, complicated work. So, you know, I don't know if others want to like weigh in on that, but I would say a number of our challenges could be made better if we had people to do the work, but it's but everybody is looking for people to do the same thing: substitute teachers, contact tracers, and that's hard.
I think, you know, Laura and I have had a lot of conversations about, you know, whether or not we should require vaccinations of teachers. And we've been walking a fine line up until, I guess, today when the mayor made her announcement. I wonder if you could comment on that, Laura or Katie, you know, how you think we're doing with vaccinations, how we're handling it, what you think the teacher's response is going to be to the mayor's announcement today.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a range of responses, just because, like, you know, different people have different needs. I think most people will decide to become vaccinated, and you know, some are going to apply for exemptions, you know, religious or medical, depending on personal circumstances. And, you know, I think there'll probably be a very small minority who decide that that's just not what they want to do and opt out of working in schools. And I hope that we can do enough of as an organization and as a city to support people in accessing like the information and resources that they need to feel supported in making the best decisions for themselves. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to retain a lot of our staff through this process. And so that's a lot of our focus right now, is figuring out how do we have the right set of conversations with staff members to make sure that they do feel supported because we need them, our kids need them, and we have work to do to make sure that we're recognizing that there's many reasons that, you know, may make this a complicated decision for people. And so we need to both, you know, recognize that this is a requirement, and there's a reason if somebody hasn't been vaccinated so far that that makes this hard. So we're trying to be thoughtful about that.
On that point, if a third of our, 28% who are not vaccinated will not be vaccinated, I mean, I'm a little nervous that we might lose 5 to 10 people, 20 teachers. That could be even more difficult for you. Do you see that as the downside?
I think we certainly have to be prepared for a range of results. I am hopeful that most people will become vaccinated. And I know that it's like anything, right? Like every year we go through a process where we start having conversations with our teachers in the winter to say, like, you know, what are you thinking about next year? Are you coming back? And I think in lots of ways, this is similar to that, right? Where we need to understand what are people's plans and how are we using that information, both to try to like support and where appropriate persuade, but then also like just take into account in our planning to figure out, like, there are going to be some people who just decide that is not what they want to do. They don't want to get vaccinated. And so we need to be thinking about what are we going to do in response, so that way we can still continue to, you know, run strong schools for our students. One of the things that we have put into our policy, the mayor's requirement, like the mandate from DC, is that everyone needs to have completed their course of vaccines by November 1st. We have put into our policy that people need to show evidence of getting the first vaccine like earlier than that, so that way, if you have not gotten your first vaccination, you know, by the beginning of October, then you're not going to be on track to be able to be done by, November. And so we're not waiting until like November 1st or 5th or whatever to know whether or not people adhered to the requirement. So I think there's like small steps like that. And then there's also just like what are the conversations that we can be having to then give us the information that we need to plan.
So I'm wondering, Patrick or Mercedes, or do you have any initial feedback from your children as to how the school year is going so far? What it's like to be back? What the goods, the bads, and the uglies are?
Okay, go ahead, Patrick. Patrick, were you going to speak?
Oh, yeah, you can go, Mercedes. I can go after you.
Oh, thank you. There is, it's sort of both sides. My youngest, who's in the 6th grade, he prefers virtual, but I think that's just getting used to waking up as early as he has to now, so that's not a huge issue. So the older one, who's actually a senior now, he's in the 8th grade, he's really, really enjoying it, and he's doing really, really well. They're both actually doing really well. So I don't think there is any huge issue. My oldest son says that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, masking up, and there may be one or two that chooses to buck the system, so to speak, but they're reprimanded about it. And my youngest, he said that there weren't too many, how should I say this? He said that there wasn't a lot of demand for mask and distancing during recess or just times in the school. So that was a concern of mine, but I think now it has gotten better because he hasn't said anything else about it. So I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yeah, I was going to say, so feedback from my kids, probably the biggest complaint is just wearing a mask all day. They just feel like it's burdensome to have a mask on all day. Unfortunately, my younger one had to do 10 days of quarantine because he was in close contact. So right off the bat, I got to see how that process was going to work and stuff. So it was at the beginning of the year. So I reached out to the assistant principal just because there wasn't work on the virtual that was scheduled for him. I know now that there's like a curriculum, like when the kids have to go there, but those first initial days, there wasn't anything. So I reached out to the assistant principal, and he had a couple of the teachers put some assignments there and stuff. So, and I will say, like, I've been dropping the kids off and picking them up. I'm laughing because, I'll see my daughter hugging somebody. I'm like, hey, you're supposed to be socially distancing, but I know it's kids, right? And they're happy to see each other. They've spent time all day, but she's not the only one. A lot of them are kind of doing that at the end of the day. They're all masked up and stuff. And I will say that that for the Edgewood Middle Campus, a lot of the teachers will come out when they're departing for the day. So they're trying to disperse some of those crowds, there'll be a gaggle of kids that are trying to hang out in a certain area. And I think the teachers and the principals are doing a good job with trying to disperse those gaggles that are at various locations around that exit. But I think, so far so good. I think they're happy to primarily be back in person with the caveat of just wearing the mask all day and everything. So.
Thank you. Nicole, I know you're over the border now, but you still, I'm sure, have valuable perspectives on this, and I'm sure you probably still have a lot of friends in our community. So do you want to weigh in on anything?
Unfortunately, I don't have much to add. I've, been in talks with a few parents that, Nixon's old friends and things of that nature, but they haven't really talked to me much about masking and how they feel about like procedures and things of that nature is more just about the kids. So sorry.
Okay, that's fine. And
And I
the
could
other,
add one note
Yeah.
about what Patrick was offering in terms of the quarantine situation. I think, you know, we really built out our virtual school. So we had a lot of good things working in virtual. And then we put a bunch of energy into having a virtual academy for kids who had medical exemption. And then we were putting all this work into reopening, and then, oh my God, however many, it was a day in, I don't even, then we have kids quarantining. And I think we quickly realized our plan, we had a plan, but it was just not going to be sufficient. And so very quickly we have shifted and to what Patrick is saying, like, we have work for the kids to do, we have a system for check-ins, but we're even evolving that further to hire some additional staff who can teach kids who are on quarantine. And we have our virtual school principal, Kent. He's going to help coordinate that. So I think it's even going to get stronger because I would imagine that even with our staff being fully vaccinated, if our students are, at home or in community where they are around a lot of people who are not vaccinated, that they will continue to transmit COVID. And so we will have cases where we'll have to continue to quarantine throughout the year until kids can be vaccinated. So it was a good learning. It was an unfortunate learning for someone like Patrick who had to go through that. I'm really sorry. But we have a much more substantive plan now. But I'm noting it and I'm pulling that out there because it kind of feels like we're running, I don't know, 8, 9 different schools instead of 6. It just feels like there's a lot of different programming we're trying to navigate.
I will say I was struck when I saw the numbers on how many were actually planning to be virtual for medical exemptions, and it's fairly small numbers, and then spread across our grades. I really felt for you in terms of how you were trying to design, the online component, and then thinking about the quarantine thing and the impact that has. I don't know if you want to say anything more about how you all are approaching that, but it just strikes me that it's an enormous challenge. Yes.
We keep having kids to this day transition into the virtual school. So right now, Kent is able to navigate and manage coaching and supporting all those teachers who are teaching so many grade levels. And, but at some point if we keep adding kids, that balance will tip and he's going to need a little bit more support. So having him in how flexible he is really helpful. And then in terms of the quarantine kiddos, we're basically going to, I don't know how much detail you guys want me to get into, but we're going to train 3 teachers across a couple of grade bands who will do math problem of the day live with kids. They will do, if you're a younger reader, foundations live, and then a close reading lesson live. So they'll have, and a movement break live and a morning meeting, class meeting, they'll have some different live touch points. And then they'll have a bunch of work posted that they do on their own. And then they have access to that tutor or teacher who's helping them to answer some of their questions, but they also have access at the end of every day to their regular teacher who can help them with their work. So, and then they post it online, and then that helps us continue to stay up to date and make sure that when they come back after their 10 days or 7 days, that they're not super far behind.
Yeah, I think that was my probably biggest concern was just that, and I know it was the first week, so I know there's kind of the learning curve and stuff, but there just wasn't like work for them to do. So, I just Amazoned a couple of books and, I was having them do some additional work. And then the teachers, like maybe like day 3 or 4, they started adding stuff to the Google Classroom that he could work on at home and stuff. So.
It's obviously, it's so hard for kids to navigate that back and forth, the transition. I just came back to school. Now I'm out of school. Now I'm coming back, it's hard on them. It's obviously so hard on parents, especially if there's not a strong program for the kids to work on and for work for them to do. But it's also really hard on the teachers on the back end and the classroom community on the back end to have students come back after 10 days who have missed a whole bunch of things. Because then you have to catch them up and reintegrate them back in. And so it's to everyone's benefit to have a pretty robust program to help kiddos who are home.
Yeah, and for recess, we went fishing a couple of days, so.
It was a successful trip, Patrick.
Any other comments or questions from the team or from the board on reopening? Well, thank you guys for all you're doing. I mean, as always, we really appreciate it. And the degrees of, I mean, we took something that was already very hard and we, you know, added about 100 different degrees of difficulty. And, you know, welcome to K-12 education. It's really remarkable what you guys are doing. So we thank you. So we'll move on then. And I think our next topic is AMC, and that is Dan and Niels.
Thanks, Michaela. Good to see everyone. Once again, we've got some updates for you on AMC's permanent building. Though this time I can say that I'm excited to share those updates, not nervous, anxious, or else I shared about it last time, many of the previous times, in fact. So let's see, updates. First, as you know, since the last board meeting over the summer, the DC Council approved the long-term lease of the Wilkinson building to DC Prep. Which was obviously a big hurdle that we talked about at the previous board meeting. So that's great news. And thank you to Niels for all the work he put in working with the council on that. We're now inches away from the finish line with the DC government. We are expecting to have the lease finalized and signed next week.
That's amazing.
That would allow a week from this coming Monday for our general contractor MCN to begin demolition work inside our portion of the building. In December, we're expecting to close on the financing. That will be financing both for the first phase, the middle school phase of Wilkinson, as well as refinancing for Edgewood and Benning. We've been working with the finance committee on all that. We'll be bringing more materials to the full board in November for approval and for additional information. And then in January, we're expecting the new construction to begin for, I mean, it's renovation to begin, but the work of that to happen inside Wilkinson, targeting a completion in June so that we'll be able to welcome back our AMC students and families to a new permanent home for the 22-23 school year. Let me turn it to Niels. Niels, do you have other things you want to add on the community front?
Before we go to Niels, Dan, can you just, I mean, I think your work on the financing, I know we're going to provide more materials later, but if you would just at a high level outline the terms we got, I mean, I think they're really extraordinary. I thought that turned out very, very well.
Yeah, thanks, Michaela. We're very pleased with the terms that were offered, which I think I can share even though this is an open meeting. Maybe I can't go into too much detail on them because they're still confidential, but high level, it's 20-year financing at 1.5% interest rate, which is significantly below what we were expecting when we put out a request for proposals. And that will be for approximately $51 million, which will cover the first phase of the Wilkinson construction, as well as refinancing our Benning debt, which is required to be refinanced as part of the new market structure, and then refinancing our Edgewood debt because it's a great deal at 1.5% to do that.
Thanks. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I think it's really a good news story. So
it is, yeah. Thank you. Niels, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. And before I jump in, so while I appreciate the thanks, I extend that same appreciation to all of you. Everyone played an active role in getting us to where we are now. And so a big kudos to all of you for the sprint to help us get to the finish line. Very much appreciated. All right, so in regards to community engagement, we continue to engage our neighbors throughout the Fort Stanton and Hillsdale community through different mediums, including our regular quarterly virtual meeting and our monthly newsletter. And specifically, now that council has voted on the disposition of Wilkinson, we are currently discussing what community partnerships should we add or expand, including potential vendors and local organizations that work adjacent to our schools. So that is some of the fun partnership work that I'm currently doing now. And lastly, as we continue the work towards the move of AMC, I believe the board should formally vote on whether you all approve the move for AMC to Wilkinson now that the disposition is passed and the lease for DGS is on the way. So just throwing that there, as I think that is a formal step that we should take as we continue in the process to move AMC.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion from someone to that effect.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mara. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Any further discussion? All those, well, let's see, have to do the roll call. So moving across the screen, Patrick, you're up first.
Aye.
Okay, Mercedes? Mara?
Aye.
Okay, Mercedes is an aye and Mara is an aye. Jenny? Nicole?
Aye.
Okay. Hadley?
Aye.
Ahmad?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
And Emily. Emily, did you hear the motion?
I did. Thanks. Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Aye. Sorry, my thing was off.
Okay, and Jenny is an aye. So with that, we have unanimously approved your request, Niels.
Thank you all. Congratulations to all of us. Exciting for the work going forward to continue to get us ready to be in AMC, or be in Wilkinson, I should say.
So any other questions from anybody on the board about the timing, the construction plans, where we stand on Wilkinson? We should all be smiling because we took a lot of hard work to get to this point, even though there's still a lot of hard work ahead of us. So this is a major milestone.
Major milestone. I think it could even be an understatement. This is spectacular financing for the long haul. We're going to be saving a lot of money that we can help our kids with. I'm very proud of Dan's incredible leadership on this, and we got the right people to help us, and certainly the right timing in terms of the market. I think it's just be spectacular. One quick question, Niels, what about that vacant lot that we bought? How's the community reacting to it? I assume they want it to be a park, right? Or what on that?
Yeah, so we've continued conversations with the Fort Stand neighbors. And in our conversations, we said sometime later this fall, now that schools reopen, now that we have gotten to a place of knowing we will be in Wilkinson, that we will revisit the conversation on what specifically to do with 1619 Frankfurt Street. And so since we've been in communication, we will continue to talk and they'll come with suggestions on what specifically they would like 1619 to eventually become and what role we can play in helping that.
Maybe putting it on the market as residential would be approved by them. I mean, that would, we might lose a little money, but probably not much. So something like that, I think would be great.
Yeah, the early signs from some of the conversations I've had with neighbors, they are interested in it being residential.
That sounds good. Thanks.
Patrick, did you have a question? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, everyone's being very efficient tonight. Emily is multitasking, but she is going to take us through the section on governance as head of the governance committee. Thank you, Emily, for making yourself available when you're trying to be many places at the same time.
Yes, I'm outside my daughter's back to school night, going in and out. Okay, So we have a lot of very important governance updates and votes this evening. So first of all, Michaela has very ably been serving as board chair for a number of years, definitely more years than we originally asked her to serve for. And so she has respectfully said that, given especially that she can't be in DC anymore, that she's really not living there anymore, that it really makes sense to find someone else to take on this important role. And she's been saying that respectfully for a while. So we've been looking for a while, I'd say for about a year and a half. But she's been very patient, and she is going to be staying on the board to help with the transition. So we've been thinking about who could be our next board chair, and really thinking about where we are in our history at DC Prep and what our needs are going forward. We knew we really wanted someone who was a strong leader, who'd had both leadership and management experience, because that executive perspective definitely is valuable to Laura and the team and the full board. We also wanted someone who we thought just really had excellent judgment about situations and about people, really strong interpersonal skills. And we wanted someone who we thought could be a visible leader in our community, and really understand the kind of org evolution work and what we're trying to do, kind of how we're operationalizing the mission right now, and the kind of shifts that we're making, because they're big and important for us as we move forward. So we have been talking a fair amount with Patrick, and he, in his very thoughtful way, has thought about it for a while and has agreed that he would be willing to serve as the next board chair if elected. And Michaela and Laura and I really thought that he could do an awesome job leading us into the future. I will send you Patrick's resume. He has a very impressive background in the military, specifically at the Air Force. He was also in the private sector, and he's back in the federal government now. But really as an engineer and as a leader of people in projects and groups. And he's been super involved as a parent at DC Prep over the 2 years he's been on the board. He's worked closely with Laura on the diversity working group. I don't know if I'm saying the name exactly right, but really has shown a lot of great judgment there, and has 2 wonderful kids with us as well. So we would be honored to have him serve as chair. And Michaela and Laura, please jump in and add anything you'd like to that.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to jump in. I think that I am very enthusiastic about having Patrick as my potential successor. We've had a number of conversations about this, and I do think that he is extremely thoughtful and has asked great questions, and has already started being a thought partner to Laura, which is a big part of the job. And I remember Terry telling me that, you know, the health and welfare of, in those days, Emily Lawson was like my top priority as board chair. And now now it's, you know, it's Laura. And I think Patrick has already started to play that role and has all the right skills and instincts to be, to play, you know, a really strong role in that sense. And so I'm ecstatic. I think it's wonderful to have a parent as board chair. I think that speaks volumes about us as an institution. So I could not be, I am thrilled. So Laura, do you want to add anything?
I feel like the only thing that I can add now that, you know, you guys have said all the things is like, whoop, 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 whoop. Yes, this is a good answer.
So I think procedurally, Emily is making a motion, if you will, Emily, on behalf of the governance committee, which has considered this carefully. And so if you would give us a motion, Emily.
Yes. So I'd like to make a motion to have Patrick be our next board chair. Do I have a second?
I'd like to be the one that having been the initial board chair, it's an honor, Patrick, to second your nomination.
Any further discussion? Okay, well then we'll do a roll call vote. So Terry, you're up first.
Let me see. Aye. Yes.
Emily.
Aye.
All right, I'm assuming you would like to abstain, Patrick, so I won't ask you to vote. Mara,
Aye, with huge thank you, Patrick.
Jenny,
Aye, huge fan.
okay. Nicole,
Aye.
okay, thank you. Hadley,
Aye.
Ahmad,
Aye.
Colette,
Aye.
okay. Patrick, congratulations. It's unanimous. We're all delighted and you will be awesome.
Thank you. And I'm humbled by this position, and I look forward to continue to work with everybody. And I look forward to serving this team and working with this team. And I will rely on you for a lot of help and support. Thank you.
Super excited, Patrick. Super excited.
Great. Okay. So we also have a slate of great incoming board candidates, assuming that they meet with everyone's approval and they get a yes vote. Let me go through them all together and we'll discuss them together, and then people can raise anything in the discussion. And then Michaela has asked that we actually do one roll call vote of the whole slate, just because, as we know, it takes a little bit of time and there are 4 of them. So you received information about them in 2 ways. Laura sent you links in the agenda, and I somehow missed that in the agenda, and I also sent you resumes and bios. So you should have a fair amount of info, though it came late. So please feel free to speak up with any questions. So we have 4 different candidates. They all really bring different strengths, but each of them on their own is also really strong. So I'll start with Dr. Lisa Cullins. She is a child psychiatrist and has had a ton of experience working in this area with kids, mainly kind of from institutional settings. Like she was at Children's Hospital for a long time. Now she's at NIMH. She is someone who we met through Judy Kovler for a combination of reasons, but we really wanted more mental health expertise for some of our kids. And Judy introduced us to her many years ago. And so we had a partnership for a number of years where Lisa actually saw some of our students on site. And then for a while brought some of her residents over, and it was just really, really powerful for the families and helpful for our team in terms of trying to kind of get our own kind of structures and systems and expertise kind of farther up the learning curve. Then she left that role, and so we couldn't continue that structure anymore, and we didn't talk for a little bit. And then as we were thinking about mental health needs, we went back to her, reconnected, and she said she'd be really excited to join the board. So she will just an incredible asset and a lovely person, and I think will be a real value to the board. Pam Steptoe was really one of our founding parents. Her daughter, Jamie Owens, was one of our original kids who came to our campus, and then was one of our original first classes of graduates. And Pam was one of our parent board members, and she was just an amazing board member, so strategic, so passionate, so committed. And really involved in so many things and contributed in so many ways. So as we were thinking about the kind of perspectives we want on the board, we love the idea of having an alum parent, someone who's kind of been with us, seen our history, but also has someone whose child has come through DC Prep and now is at a totally different stage of life and is kind of able to look back and reflect on that and think about what that means for the school and how we can serve kids better. So she is excited to join us. Her day job is in technology, some project management in terms of government work. So she has a lot of project management expertise. And so definitely brings functional skills there as well. And I know that she will add a ton. So that's Pam Steptoe. Daniel Fine, and he goes by Dan, is a friend of Mara's. And she brought him up when we were saying that we really need some more finance expertise, and particularly someone who is willing to serve as our audit chair. And Dan has a really extensive business background in kind of financial management and also in operational management. He was at Bloomberg for a long time, running one of their business units. and has recently kind of gone out on his own as a consultant. He's also been serving on the board of Paul Public Charter School for a while, maybe 6 years, maybe longer. And during that time, he's been very involved and has seen a lot. He's seen the effort at unionization. He's seen them expand to high school and buy that building. And so he's really kind of lived through some of the stuff that happens from a charter governance standpoint, and I think brings a lot of great perspective that way as well. So we thought he would be a really fine addition to the board, and he was interested in serving. And then finally, Chevy Cleaves is a friend of Patrick. And I think we should have to say FOP because Sterling is a friend of Patrick's also. So we have a couple FOPs now. And he's a newer addition to the pipeline, but Patrick also brought him up somewhat recently. And we were really excited because he also has an extensive background in the military, specifically at the Air Force. And he served as head of diversity and inclusion efforts at different institutions. And that effort, kind of that expertise, will be really valuable to us now and going forward in so many ways, from a student perspective, from a staff perspective, et cetera. Laura and I had a lovely conversation with him, and he was just so thoughtful about kind of different initiatives throughout his life that he's been involved with, that we're all about making sure that kids everywhere have great opportunities. And he just has a very nuanced perspective to bring, which will be incredibly helpful. And so he works at the Lincoln Lab. He's the head of the chief diversity officer at the Lincoln Lab, which is a part of MIT. So his work is in Boston, but he's actually based in Virginia now. And so hopefully he'll be staying in the area for a while. But even if he needs to move back to Boston, he is committed to continuing his involvement and finding ways to be present and stay connected to the community. So those are our 4 candidates. What people, please jump in and add anything. And let me say one other thing, which is we've talked in the governance committee and at the board about other strong candidates in our pipeline. So there are other people out there who've been supportive of DC Prep, advisors in various ways, who've expressed interest in potentially serving on the board at some time. But we thought that these 4 best met our needs right now. And so we want to move forward with them. That does not at all mean that the other people we've considered are kind of out of the running, because we have some really strong candidates in the pipeline, and we're just generally trying to build up a better pipeline for the future.
And I would, Jenny, go ahead and then I'll weigh in. Go ahead, Jenny.
First of all, I just think you guys have done a remarkable job. It's hard to get people right now. And I know since I've been behind the scenes in a couple conversations, so I think it's an incredible slate. I think my only question, and I'm super supportive, I would vote yes right now. My only question is when we think about sort of capacity and from a fundraising standpoint, whether it's corporation side or individual side, whether you guys feel like you have enough of that between the existing board and this new set. And again, that's not to say I'm not so supportive.
I mean, I would say my reaction to that is it is a good question. And I think as we consider the next round, that should be probably, should rise higher. I think we felt like we were at a point where we wanted to go after some specific skills and expertise as well as diversity. And I think this is an incredibly strong mix of people from different backgrounds who will all really contribute in a large way. So I think it's a very good point, but I think we should think about it more probably in the next round. But I think we have reason to believe that several of these people, will be philanthropic and have good connections and networks. So
I think that's great. I just sort of related to that. I think if we can get a leader of a significant foundation to be on the board at some point, and I know Aaron, hasn't been ready yet, but I do think that will help potentially save organizational time on some of the smaller dollar stuff, as a thought.
No, it's a good point. And we're still very high on Erin. I mean, if we can get her to yes, she'd be very, high on the list of the next round. She's just not ready right now.
No, totally. I just meant as an example, but yes, totally with you. But this is amazing.
Yeah. And I will say, Emily and the team have done a great job. And as she said, we're trying to stoke the pipeline a bit. And I think we've turned the corner on that. But I've been on calls with 3 of the 4. I haven't reconnected with Pam Steptoe recently, but I did serve on the board with her when she was first a member of the board, as did Terry. And she was a great board member. But the 3 newer folks who I've been on calls with, I think all will bring a lot. And one thing I would just add about Chevy, well, 2 points. One is it's really a tribute to the board. If you think about how all of these people originated, Emily ran into Pam Steptoe, and then she thought, wow, that she could be an interesting, re-addition to the board. Patrick recommended Chevy, who he's known for a long time. Judy recommended Lisa, and Mara recommended Dan. And so that was really, we really appreciate the fact that the board has been thinking hard and thoughtfully about their networks. And just another word about Chevy. In my conversation with him, the other thing he will bring is he was head of admissions for the Air Force Academy and had to intentionally think about, what experiences and classes did kids need in high school in order to qualify, for the service academies. And he met a lot of high promise kids who just simply hadn't had the requirements. And so he's been very focused on that. And when I said, well, we don't have a high school, but we go to middle school, he said, well, middle school is the whole foundation. So, I mean, he has professionally really thought about this. So I think he'll contribute in many, many ways. So I don't want to force voting the slate. It's just that otherwise we're going to take 4 roll call votes. And if you all are comfortable voting the whole slate, I would just suggest that's a good way to do it. But if anyone is not comfortable, we don't have to do it that way.
I just wanted to add that I too am very impressed. Emily, great job. Thanks, Michaela and Emily, for all the hard work to attract such great people to our board. I think that's so important for the ongoing viability of DC Prep. I can speak, having served with Pam Steptoe, she'll be great. So I think moving the board, moving them as a slate is appropriate. Thank you.
So is everyone comfortable voting the slate as a whole?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so Emily, do you want to propose the slate on behalf of the committee?
Yes. So I'd like to propose adding to the board Lisa Cullens, Pam Steptoe, Daniel Fine, and Chevy Cleaves to start in November.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, looking around the screen then, Terry, you're up first.
Aye.
Okay, Emily?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Mara?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
And Hadley?
Aye.
And Ahmad?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. A great, great new group of board members. Emily and team, thank you. I'm very excited about this. And that's all for you now. Is that right, Emily? And then we're going to celebrate outgoing board members in closed session. So are there any other topics that anyone wants to bring up while we're in open session?
Oh, just one acknowledgement of something that is still to come. We have one additional board member that we will need to vote on probably in November, as soon as I get as soon as I'm able to go and do the work that we need to do, because given Nicole's transition, we need to find a new parent from our Anacostia community to join the board. And Nicole has even thoughtfully spoken to folks that she knows that I just need to go and do the broad all call, and we always have interviews. And so I look forward to being able to bring another board candidate to the board, hopefully in November. And I'll work with the governance committee in order to make sure that we get that done.
So could I have a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, so roll call vote on that. Terry? Emily?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Maura?
Aye.
Ahmad? Jenny?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
And Hadley?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so we're now in closed session for the purpose of